Hi, I'm Purval Irkede, brand and marketing strategist and writer at thecleantusk.com. This video section of the blog focuses on meeting professionals from various backgrounds and learning from their marketing and business expertise. Today, I'm speaking to a senior marketing manager, Mike Burlin, who is an absolute master of customer acquisition, retention, and go-to-market strategies. He has worked for companies like Amazon and Zupa over the past 15 years. Let's get to know Mike better and understand his favorite business concept. Mike, welcome to the Clean Tusk. We met through a mentorship program, and during one of those sessions, you mentioned your experiences growing up in Virginia in a very disciplined home environment with a father who served the military. Tell me, what led to you deciding on studying a BA in cultural anthropology?
Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. So, what led me to decide to study anthropology? It's a good question. Like you mentioned, I grew up in, American suburbs with, I don't know if it was a disciplined home life, but I think there were just like expectations around preferred career paths versus, not preferred career paths. And I think personally, I felt this pressure too, which was more around like, do you want to just exclusively focus on the path that takes you to a job out of college, or do you want to take a path that's more, focused on learning and getting out of your comfort zone? And I would say that's probably was my key driver. So I think where I really got into cultural anthropology was really learning, just hearing stories. I took a class, a couple of cultural anthropology classes where you just got exposed to people who you otherwise wouldn't come into contact with, whether it was, people who were local and, just different groups of people where you would go out and do field work for a particular project and try to just understand how they're living their lives, to, trying to make connections with communities um, further abroad. And so for me, it was, I think what really got me into it was finding some of those stories really compelling and being really interested in the why someone's life is so different than mine. I think there was a lot of pressure into maybe going to something like finance or management, but at the time I just wanted to embrace, I was probably a little bit rebellious and just wanted to embrace something that I enjoyed versus something that was very skills driven. And I'm not sure I would agree with that advice today, but at the time I really leaned into going deeper on cultural anthropology. And it was really interesting. I majored in it and also studied a lot of topics around identity, around how people define themselves in terms of nationalities, and how you define yourself in terms of nationality when you maybe live somewhere that you didn't grow up. And so that was really interesting. So yeah, I would say it comes down to the opportunity to learn about other people, their day-to-day lives, their cultures, and just finding that really compelling.
That's very interesting. You've also worked overseas in England. You also had a study abroad, section,
Mhm.
part of this BA in cultural anthropology. Surprisingly, I noticed on your LinkedIn that you actually visited the university where I studied.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
but tell me, having these diverse experiences, and knowing that in marketing, we have to study consumers, their behaviors, their psychology, has this degree helped you, in your work over, the period of
Yeah.
15 years of your decade, of your career so far?
Yeah, I think, like I mentioned, I was really just chasing, following my interests and following my passions when I majored in cultural anthropology. And it wasn't until a few years after I graduated that I realized it could be, those skills were like transferable to a business setting.
Hmm.
And, I was, and it was a very random. I had moved across the country. I was trying to figure out, what I wanted to do next. Did I want to go to grad school? And I connected with a friend of a friend who worked at a management consultancy that focused. It was a boutique shop that focused on brand strategy and brand portfolio strategy. And I had talked about wanting to move into more of a, let's say, real job versus the no, I'll stop there. I won't call that real job, but I wanted to get more of a professional job
Hmm.
uh, versus working in the service industry, which what I had done the years prior. And I really wanted to, and it was interesting because they were doing a bunch of market research around um, how people thought about brands and how they positioned certain types of brands versus other brands. And one of the things that was really interesting was we had a couple beer clients,
Mm.
and uh, when you listen to customers talk about Pilsner or like
Mm.
light beer, specifically in the American market segment, um, they talk about, you put them on a scatter chart and they're so different, like in terms of the ways that they talk about them. And then if you do a blind taste test with those beers, they all are very much the same. Like in terms of like they can't, generally, broadly speaking, customers can't tell the difference between these Pilsner beers. And so that really opened my eyes to like, how much influence that storytelling can have and how much, you can, like by listening, you can really learn like about how people organize meaning in their world and how they organize, or how they understand topics relative to other topics, and then the opportunity to like also learn about their needs and how to take those insights and go ahead and build something that kind of addresses their needs. So that was really the jump, was that first role where I did that market research, and it really opened my eyes to being able to apply this like very you know genuine but kind of trivial interest in just like hearing people tell their stories into, oh, I can hear that, absorb it, analyze it, create insights, and then ideally work on products or services that help kind of address some of the products that they've or some of the challenges or problems that they have in their daily lives that they just told me about.
Incredible. One of your earlier career jobs was at Zupa, a platform that focuses on crowdsourcing creative talent, where you led the development of go-to-market strategies and managed inbound marketing initiatives. You were successful at tripling the volume of marketing qualified leads over the 2 years that you were there. Give us a mini portrait of that experience. You could touch on both the positives
Hmm.
and negatives, the challenges. What was involved in achieving that metric?
I was at a time in my life where it was after the financial crisis and I had actually been laid off, and I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do next. And part of me was interested in getting involved in the early stage, or like the startup scene in Seattle. And I came across this quite early stage startup that was experimenting with, how do you connect brands and marketing teams to creators online? How can you say that you need some work done and then, offer that work to people like just through an online community? And for me it takes some boxes in the sense that it was kind of creative, it was related to marketing, and I had a little bit of experience there, and it was some excitement around being part of something that was being built. And so I joined the team uh pretty early on in their life cycle. Maybe not the first marketing hire, but maybe the second or third. And we, it's a company that offers B2B. It offers a B2B service, which is like creative services. Um, and so um, I walked in really having, you know, entry level marketing skills, maybe a little more advanced than entry level, and very much not any skills in B2B marketing. But and the business itself was also, was relying very much on like outbound sales motions and outbound sales teams to get business. And there was a little bit of marketing that was really focused on like events and offline networking opportunities. But when I joined the company, it was also a time where companies like HubSpot and Marketo were taking off, and there's this whole topic around, how can you listen, like the whole topic around inbound marketing, where it was really about how can you, serve the needs of a customer in a upfront by providing them with information, not to sell them on anything, but really just to like provide them with information to help them learn about something or help them learn about your product or help them make an informed purchase decision. And this is primarily like popular in my use case, which is like B2B marketing. And so I really spent some time getting up to speed on what that was all about. And so I ended up setting up in kind of like the marketing operations that turned our business from relying exclusively on outbound sales to really also relying on digital marketing and lead generation. So we launched a client-facing website, which included a blog, which included place for testimonials and use cases and case studies. And we've had a destination now that we could drive potential customers to, and those customers could consume content, get some value, and then ideally they would consume that content or ask for that content in exchange for an email address or the contact information. And this was the early days. This was kind of like a relatively new
Mm.
concept. And so and that created a kind of an audience that we could then communicate or build a relationship more with through newsletters, through sometimes we would engage in sales calls if they thought we thought that they were ready to make a purchase. But it was really like building an audience, and that was kind of like my next unlock of that early days of Web
Mm.
2.0 around, oh, it's about building an audience, it's about providing value to that audience through content, and then strategically thinking about which people in that audience can you serve, and how do you initiate like a sales conversation with them. And so yeah, I think that was a really great experience. I really cut my teeth as a marketer. I got to really deep into like all things digital marketing, and it definitely kind of boosted my interest in marketing, which I eventually went on to both study in grad school further and also ended up going to Amazon.
Wow. You mentioned that it was the early days, of digital marketing and coming together in a very sophisticated manner. Um, Tell me, digital marketing has changed so much. Even just like Google Analytics, for example, has transformed so much. Would you say it was easier then, or is it easier today? Because we just have so many options to
Yeah.
create inbound marketing leads and ads. Today, we really have like a platter of offerings, and it can get a bit confusing. But what would you say?
I think my mental model around that is, whenever there's an opportunity to use something that doesn't, or like to use a tactic or a channel where there's not a lot of competition, um, it's a competitive advantage, right?
Mm.
So, back then it was the early days, but I think there's still a lot of people creating content, but I guess relatively speaking to today, there was maybe fewer people doing it. Um, but it's hard to say, like relative to today, the answer was yes, but there's still
Mhm.
a lot of content being created and a lot of content not being consumed.
Mm.
um but no, I think, but kind of like broadening the focus there, it's like
Mhm.
um I think there's a real value in being proactive around trying stuff that's new and
Mm.
allocating part of your time and resources to emerging channels or emerging opportunities, because if you can get in and it works for you and there's low competition, that can be a real driver of growth or whatever,
Mhm.
kind of whatever marketing outcome you're trying to generate.
Goals, yes. Following your time at Zupa, you moved on to Amazon and worked there for 10 incredible years. During this time, you moved to London to work on the customer retention strategy of the then newly launched Amazon Fresh in the UK region. What was it like working with a new retail product at Amazon and hitting the targets considering the large scale of operations at Amazon?
It was an amazing experience. It's really interesting to support, be part of a project where your task is to reposition a really well-known company to be relevant to a new use case. And in this case, it was repositioning Amazon as an e-commerce retailer to being a grocery destination and a e-commerce retailer that delivers groceries. And it creates interesting moments where you you feel like the brand equity of Amazon and how trusted that brand is, um, broadly speaking, or positively received. Um, it works for and against that project, right? Because on the one hand, you're like leaning into your strengths and trying to apply, your assets and um, your way of doing business to a new use case that can, you know, drive growth, new customers, and kind of deepen engagement with your product. But at the same time, uh, fresh groceries, buying apples from the same place that you are typically used to getting, books in boxes or bags. I was surprised about how that was a sticky subject for so many customers because it really was a paradigm shift. And they really had to be shown or had to like be convinced or imagine that, the groceries were coming from a place of, a grocery facility and not like one of our massive fulfillment centers that, it houses a lot of, uh, hard goods and products like that. And and so I think there was just like a lot of customer education, but yeah, I mean, it was really cool. I wouldn't say I wasn't on the launch team, but I joined the team closely after launch, and then worked on a team that also kind of helped take the business to the next level in a bunch of different markets in Europe. But it was a lot of fun because you're constantly trying to figure out how do you reverse engineer all of your processes and all of your ways of working to into a business. You're trying to support a business that sells high unit per order baskets, like 20 items in a basket. It's a relatively long checkout time. You're trying to do all that on a website, and from a customer mindset that's used to immediate fulfillment, immediate delivery, one unit per order kind of orders. So it was
Wow.
just super interesting to problem solve in that space.
Mm. I'm going to quote you now. Well, quote something, right? Rather.
Right.
We have the people, the process, and the technology to drive impact and growth. I love this statement. Now, the audience might be wondering where this comes from. This is a part of the LinkedIn bio of Sidebar, a leadership program that is aimed at improving careers. Mike, you are a part of this amazing network. Tell us more about Sidebar.
So Sidebar is a network of it's like a online community that pairs you with people who are really into this concept of your personal board of directors. So there's this concept of where if as you're moving through life and trying to accomplish what you want to accomplish in life, it's helpful to have a board of directors, like just like a company or like a CEO that is there to provide advice, that is there to give you feedback on things, that's there to provide different perspectives. And I think the intention is also not to have someone who's super in your life every day, but have someone that's maybe one or two steps removed. And so that concept has existed for a long time, but I came across this company called Sidebar that actually tries to productize that concept. And what you do is you apply, and if you're accepted, you get paired into a cohort of folks who, I think the best way to describe it is like have adjacent interests or like complementary skills or experiences that would be beneficial to you. I really don't know how they do the pairing, but it seems to work in the sense that you're kind of put in a group where you're interacting with people that might be more senior than you, might be a little bit junior than you, that have complementary, that work in complementary functions. But the idea is that you come and meet every 2 weeks online, and you members can do a round robin of coming and presenting challenges that they're going through to have this session where you kind of go methodically through the problem with your board of directors. And in turn, you are also, providing the feedback as a board of director for someone else. And it's been really helpful. The need that it was fulfilling for me was I left Amazon last summer and moved back to the US. And I knew that part of that process, I hadn't lived in the US for 7 years. And so I wanted to start building my network, and this is one of the avenues that allowed me to do that. And I think I was also going to make some decisions about, where I wanted to go next professionally after taking some time off. And so it was super helpful to have that kind of core mechanism of people that I could go to with questions or just for advice.
That's so exciting. Mike, you have ghostwritten thought leadership articles, you have taught English to refugees, and you have even mentored interns. At the Clean Task, I love learning straight from the professionals. Name and explain one concept, theory, or metric that you work closely with and why it's important to you.
I'll try to break this down. So one concept that I've really been paying a lot of attention to lately is this concept around customer-based company valuation, which sounds like a really boring topic and a very financy, boring topic. But I think at its core, it's a way of evaluating the health of a business based on its ability to acquire customers and then turn those customers into reliable repeat customers in a way that also is good for the unit economics of a business.
Yes.
So it's driving profitability of the business. And so I first got in touch with topics related to this when I was working on the grocery business, but it's really about looking at each customer cohort that's required and seeing who sticks around, and of those who stick around, how much do they use the product, and what kind of, how much value are they getting out of it, and how much are they, paying for that value. And that was just, it really opened my eyes because I think it really focuses you on the importance of the first touch point or the first transaction of a business. And then also the need to be intentional about, delivering a good experience and making sure that it's easy for the customers to come back and use the product over and over again. If I think about something like going to the gym, you want to create a cool gym environment so that you stick around and decide to keep your subscription open versus shutting it down. But I don't know, it really has opened my eyes to kind of like the key, what drives growth for a business, and what drives, profitable growth. And so it's really led me to believe differently about, the role that I play as a marketer in a company, and also, just thinking differently about businesses that and products that I interact with on a daily basis.
Wow, incredible. We're almost at the end of our interview, but last question before we close off. What is your message to the world?
I have a simple message. It's just be nice to one another. That's all.
I like that. Short and sweet. Incredible. I really, really enjoyed speaking to you. Thank you so much for being one of my first guests on the cleantask.com. I cannot wait to meet you in person and wish you all the best.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Prabal.
Thank you. If you found today's interview enriching and wish to learn more about marketing from various professionals and experts, do subscribe to thecleantask.com. Comment on what you'd like to see next. And for now, I'm Purval Irkede, and until next time, keep learning and keep innovating.